Welcome to the October 17th regular school board meeting. Thank you all for coming out. I know it's cold and windy out there, so I appreciate your presence. Veronica, would you call to order? Or no, I'm sorry. Please stand for the pledge. Sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now, Veronica, would you please call the roll?
Mr. McInnes?
Here.
Mr. Ratliff?
Here.
Mr. Weidling?
Here.
Mrs. Dyer?
Here.
Mrs. McKay?
Here. All right, we'll go to item 3, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, President McKay. I want to remind our community that our mission is to inspire a community of achievement. And what a better way to start this off by just that. I'm going to go ahead and introduce Beverly Robinson for a presentation on Coats for Kids.
Good evening, and thank you so much for having me.
Oh, wait.
Look your mask. So I'll run back to my seat. Just for the record. Good evening, my name is Beverly Robinson. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Coats for Children. We started it 16 years ago. We're 100% volunteers, and we network, and we're in 14 school districts. So we're pretty proud of that as being 14 school districts and 16 years young in doing this. We community partner and have over 91 community partnerships. Our goal this year is to have 100, and we're almost there. But I want to talk about what makes me so excited, and that is being in Marion. This is our 3rd year being here, and I want to say thank you so very much. Haven't been to your school board yet, just so you know, but it is so nice just to get to know the kiddos. And I tell you, every time that we present the schools with brand new coats, the teachers, principals, social workers, guidance counselors, school nurses, they are so appreciative. And how our program works, if you're not familiar with it, a letter is sent home or a phone call to the parent or guardian, and they inform them that we have coats available in an inventory size, and the child will receive a coat. The parent will come up that evening or that next day, and the child will appear on their school bus or on the walk to school, and they look just like everybody else. That's extremely important, especially when you're in elementary school. You want to look just like everybody else. We're so happy today that through our community partnership, we're so happy that we have Black Tie, moving company that has helped us move everything around. They have community partnered with us to get everything to Marion, as well as the class of 1972 of Harding High School, who we affected today. Yes, 50 years, you guys. So that is exciting in and of itself. Then I'd like to share with you the schools that we impact. Today was delivery day. We sent a slide presentation when we were done, and we also went to Carlisle's restaurant. You guys been there? It is awesome and amazing. Oh my gosh, you have to have the fried bologna and the chicken, and don't forget to get the onion rings with their dip. So let me just tell you really quickly, and I'll be seated, and Mr. McGuire will come up and he will share from the class of 1972. The schools that we affected was Washington, George Washington. They received 51 coats. Benjamin Harrison received 17 coats. William McKinley received 34 coats. William Taft, that is, they received 34. James Garfield, they received 17. And then Leap Outreach Community Center that's here, they received 85. And then, if
last but not least, the Boys and Girls Club. Who couldn't say yay to that, right? The Boys and Girls Club, they received 96. And we are so happy to say that our donation, it was 300 through the partnership, but someone else stepped up again, and we were able to present 334 brand-new coats in your district. So we're so happy to do that, and thank you. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you so much for what you do each and every day to make our little kiddos just a little more confident in their step, because they just want to learn and look like everybody else. Not a big demand at all. So thank you. At this time, if I can present the class of I always wanted to say that, 1972. If you will come up, please, and then begin to share. Thank you so very much.
I thought I was going to sing, but
Well, you know, take it away.
thank you. I know several of you on the board. My name's Tim McGuire, and I'm here on behalf of the class of 1972 with several of my classmates, graduated there too. And I want to acknowledge that in our years in Marion City Schools, we received a high-quality education. And as I look at it, I think there were two things fundamental to that. Number one, the schools were all staffed with teachers and administrators that were knowledgeable in their field and were committed to this community and the children in it. The second thing was the community itself that backed the schools and supported us in almost anything and everything we wanted to try to accomplish. And that has allowed us all, for the most part, to have fulfilling and successful lives in all fields of endeavor. And we owe a lot of that to the education we got through the Marion City Schools. It's giving us that foundation. And so our opportunity to help out just in some small way to give back to the community and the children in it is an opportunity we wanted to grab hold of. And so I appreciate both Coats for Children for allowing us to do that, and for our own Rick Schuster, for our fellow graduate, for coordinating between us and that organization. And again, thank you for allowing us to be here. Again, the class will do whatever we can, when we can, to help out this community. Thank you.
Could we get a picture? Do we have, want to take a picture? Yeah. Should we get a picture, I think, if we could do that? Okay, they usually.
Okay.
Yeah, come on up.
I do what I'm told.
How do you want to do it?
Mr. McGuire?
Okay, can we send these from the kitchen to our website? Thank you so much. Family time.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excuse me, ma'am. What's her name?
Beverly?
Beverly? Could you tell us? Yeah, I got you. Before you leave, can you please tell us people that want to partner or donate or get a hold of your organization, volunteer? I don't know what they can do because this is being videoed, so there's a lot of people that watch afterwards. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
Yep.
This way? Well, my name is Beverly Robinson. I'm the Executive Director and founder of Coats for Children. We provide brand new coats for children in Ohio. We are 100% volunteers, and if you would like to community partner with us, we would love that so much because that is how we serve our children in Ohio, by being 100% volunteering. And we always just ask if you would just say yes. There's so much power in a simple yes. You would go to the website, coatsforchildren.org, or you can find us at the Columbus Foundation as well. And you can also get in touch with us through the class of 1972 Harding. And we're so excited to be here. Thank you so much, and thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's how the class of 72, they reached out to you and.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that's how you partner with someone.
Yes, they will reach out to us and they will ask us to community partner with them, and we will evaluate that and say, yes, that's a good fit. 99.9% of the time, it's an excellent fit.
So as far as what you're telling us and what they've said is the class of 72 partnered with you, and that's partially responsible for how we got all these coats here in our community.
Yes, and also we community partner and Coats for Children matched them.
Okay.
So that's how we were able to do it.
Okay,
And
so I'm a class of 93. If I can get the class of 93 to step up, we obviously can provide more coats, is what we're saying.
That's what we're
Okay.
saying.
All right.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for your time.
Yep.
If you have any questions, just shout us out at coatsforchildren.org. Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
nice night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. All right, we'll go to item number 4, Assistant Superintendent's Report. I think that's you, Olympia. Great.
So I will be speaking tonight to the Marion City Schools Identification and Service Plan for Gifted Students. As you may or may not know, the state of Ohio requires us to have a plan for how we're going to ID and how we're going to service our gifted students. We have a plan every year, but since we've had new leadership, we decided we would just take another eye and compare to the Ohio operating standards. And so there are a few changes. I'm going to speak to them briefly. I tried to make it clear in the plan that is in the board agenda. In the green area will be the new spaces or things that we've added. The rest of it is content that was in the previous 21-22 plan. So on the first page, we added an introduction. This plan really is complex in that it has to serve our staff, it has to serve our students, but it also has to be in parent-friendly language to help them understand. So we basically took some of that language that the state has provided to us, and we added an introduction to the plan just so if somebody's reading it, they understand what the purpose of it is. We did not change anything to the definition of gifted. Those still stay, and those are still areas within Marion City that we ID, superior cognitive ability, specific academic ability in reading, math, science, and social studies. Creative thinking is still an area, and then visual and performing arts. Those have not been changed, but I just thought it would be good to just mention that those are the areas that we ID and service. Next, you'll see in green a statement of inclusion. As part of the Ohio standards, it's just important for us to bring to the forefront that we make sure that there are equal opportunities for students to be identified as gifted, and so we did add an inclusion statement based on state guidance and language to just say that we are going to make sure that we don't overlook our traditionally underrepresented student groups, including minority groups, students who are economically disadvantaged, students with disabilities, and English learners. Again, this is something that we're seeing statewide, and we just want to make sure that all of our students have those opportunities. The next green section is on page 3. You'll see at the top there's a glossary of commonly used terms. So everything you see in black is in the previous plan, but we just, again, tried to pull this together in a way that it would be easy, basically, for parents to understand, because we know as educators, this is normal for us to look at. So we thought if we put these together in a glossary of commonly used terms, it might be easier for parents to locate. We did add two definitions. They're number 8 and number 9. The standard error of measurement we added, that's just to help people understand when we look at assessments, what we typically would look at, and then we also give the definition of twice exceptional. So those are there for clarity. On page 4, you'll see on the district service plan, this chart has just been reformatted, but again, none of the content has changed. We did add to the bottom visual and performing arts as one of the gifted services that we do provide. It wasn't in the previous chart, though. We could still provide it, but we just thought, again, let's add it here because it is one of the gifted services that we can provide. We tried to, again, just make this a little bit more clear by putting what grades can participate and then what that service setting is. But again, the only new thing, and it's not really new because it was in the plan, but we just added it to just show that visual and performing arts is also an area of gifted service. Right below that, you'll see a blurb there in green. And so this is basically just to clarify who our service providers are, gives a better definition. Again, just trying to be clear about who's providing these gifted services. You will then go on to see just a list of the assessments. We just, again, tried to just make those clear. All of that content is the same. At the very last page, on page 9, you'll see in green, we added reference to Ohio Revised Code as well as Ohio Administrative Code, because a lot of this language is written into those codes. And so when we post this on our website, once approved, parents can click on those links and they're interactive. It will take them directly to the state language. We also added some resources that the state provides to us that we thought would be useful and that we use to put the plan together and check the plan. So those are added there. And then we added our new contact information for our gifted and testing coordinator. So the process for this is anytime we make revisions to the plan, we would bring it to the board to adopt. So you will see it later on the agenda. And then we will send this off to the Ohio Department of Education and they will review it and say, we're good to go, or they'll send it back and say we need to make revisions. But I just thought we would let you know the updates that we made, and like I said, you'll see it later on the agenda for adoption. But if we don't make changes, we wouldn't necessarily have to have it adopted, but we did try to add some things this year for clarity, so we will be submitting this to the state after the board makes their decision on this plan presented.
Great.
You're saying visual and performing arts was added?
It was in the previous plan, but it wasn't on this chart that
Okay.
actually said it was a gifted service that we could provide.
And when we're talking visual and performing arts, what kind of things are we?
Like drama, dance, music, and I think one thing that's important to note regarding this is, let's say we have a teacher who isn't necessarily trained in any gifted services, but we have a child who ends up, IDing in visual performing arts. There are classes that they can take for the gifted service provider hours, so we would be able to provide support to that teacher to give them those hours so that they would have those strategies and those skills equipped to meet the needs of those students. We have some teachers that have already stepped up and said, hey, I would like to get those gifted service provider hours. They're not a bad thing because they just help us with our differentiation of instruction. They help us with those kids who are higher performing in certain areas. So it's not a bad thing to get, whether you have gifted students in your class or not, because next year you might, and 2 years from now you might. So we are working with those teachers who have come forward and said that they would like to get those gifted service provider hours.
And last, could you tell us, like on the referrals, because I didn't know this until I read this, but the different ways, I guess, like for instance, the first one is self-referral. So if a child or someone thinks that they're gifted, they can, I guess, approach a principal, or who do they, like how does the referrals, how do we get a kid or a parent get a kid into the gifted program or to be assessed because they think their child. Could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, so this will, once adopted, this will be placed on our website, and all of our schools will have access to it, and they would contact Samantha Schaffner, and she would walk them through that. But absolutely, any of these people can, even a peer could recommend another student and to say, I think this kid may be gifted in, whatever area, and then we would go through the process of doing testing and screening and contacting parents.
Yeah, because what I'm talking about, I take it that our teachers know they can recommend, and I think principals have noticed and recommend certain students, but down here, I did not know that a community member or, their peers, as you just pointed out, could actually refer them and say, hey, I think this person's higher than normal and you need to test for services, I guess.
Yes, and I think that's where it goes back to when we were trying to talk as a team, saying, is there anything that we're missing? We're looking at what the state's recommending, and that's really what it's about, is this access piece, right? And we have an obligation to make sure that we're educating the public, and we're educating our staff, and we're educating our students and our parents to know these things, because if you don't know, that might be a group of kids who never gets referred for gifted, and they may actually be qualified to receive those services.
On that criteria, are we going to, as a district, maybe reach out to, let's say, youth pastors would be an easy one to get a hold of, or other, how do we get it to the community that if you recognize a gifted person, obviously, are we going to send that out? Because I didn't know, maybe a youth pastor would say, hey, this person is gifted and highly intelligent, I think he should be referred. Are we going to get that information out from us to them, or how are we doing that?
We certainly can. I don't know how it's been done in the past, but I will definitely take that back to my team, and we can work with communications, but yes.
Yeah,
Too, don't we have screeners in place that sometimes, like our iReady assessments, a lot of the assessments on this approved chart that catches a lot of our kids according to how they score and what percentile on these tests, correct? So we would catch a lot of these students, some of the assessments that we already perform within the district, right?
Yes, we do whole grade screeners, and if those students score at that number, then it would prompt us to go to another place. But we also have students that aren't very good at taking tests. They have test anxiety, but they're still very bright kids. So, if you know that as a teacher, or you feel that as a parent, then you're still able to go through the recommendation to have them screened in some different areas that would not be a whole grade screener.
or you see them outside of a classroom setting and you understand as a person they might get it, but they're just not showing it in the work that a teacher would refer you, right?
Yes, correct.
So like, for instance, I'm thinking just off the top of my head that we should get this information to, or at least let them know, all our youth coaches and youth pastors, and those, to me, seem like we should get that. We have several programs that if you're noticing anything in these kids, because I didn't even know we had, until I read this, visual and performing arts that we were qualified in. I know we have a lot of students that take this and very talented kids in our district, but I did not know that we had that as a gifted category. So,
I've got just a couple questions too. So whether it's a ballpark number, how many gifted intervention specialists do we have? Are we aiming to have one person in each building, or do we have more than that, or is there a lot fewer?
I don't have a number.
Fair
we can
enough.
provide it,
Okay,
but
gotcha.
I do know that we have multiples at the schools.
Okay.
Some of them have students that they are servicing, but some do not have students they're servicing.
Gotcha. Okay, depending on the content?
Yeah.
Okay, or the
grade,
gifted,
the
where
class,
they
how
are.
they make up the
Okay.
classes at the elementary
Gotcha.
school.
And that was my next question. I personally have more experience with the high school level in terms of honors classes, accelerated classes, AP classes. And I don't know if you've been here long enough to know yet, or if somebody else can address, but so what's the gifted program look like at the elementary schools, at the junior high? Or do they have the same accelerated honors classes, stuff like that? Or again, because my history is just with the high school level. So I don't know if you're able to speak to that yet, or somebody else is.
I'm not really sure if they
Okay.
have the honors at the
didn't
middle.
know.
I know that they're doing cluster grouping at the elementary level. And again, I think it just depends, because you may have one student who has one need, right? So they may be working one-on-one with that gifted service provider, whereas another setting might be appropriate to put those students together in
That's what the clusters
clusters.
means?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. I just wasn't aware. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
we're rolling.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you for that. All right, we'll go to the treasurer's report. First off, I need board minute approval for the October 7th, or the previous board meeting on September 19th. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Discussion? Veronica, please call the roll.
Mr. McInnes?
I was a second, but yes.
I'm sorry, I got the screen so big I can't read them. Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. Item number B, letter B. Treasurer's report. Motion to approve the following financial items. The September financial information is presented below. Donations of coats for kids, 300 new coats for MCS students. Donation book project, First Presbyterian Church for Taft and Harrison, $3,000 each school. Donation to Grant Athletics, $4,800 from Buckeye Collision for GMS scoreboard. Donation from Marion County Foundation O'Shea Fund. Musical donation, $700. Donation Warren Brown Family Foundation, $1,000 for the Warren Brown Memorial Scholarship. And we also have our financials, our checks, and our September 22 fund balance. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Discussion?
I do want to change, they did have 300 coats that were donated, but in the end, it was 334.
Okay.
So I just want to make note of
Okay.
On that 3,000 for each school, it says for book project, what's that?
that. All I know is that that church donated $3,000 to Taft Elementary and Harrison Elementary to purchase books. Obviously, the books have to be, appropriate.
Appropriate,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. So it's
And
just for, it's like library type books?
Library books, excuse
Okay,
me,
yeah,
yes, I'm
that's
sorry.
what I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Yep, okay, thank you.
All right. Call the roll, please.
Okay. Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
And Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. And thanks to all for your generous donations to our schools. All right, this is when we come to the hearing of the public. The Board of Education recognizes the value to school governance of public comment of educational interest and the importance of allowing members of the public to express themselves on school matters of community interest. Public participation is a time set aside for the board to listen to public comments, but it is not intended as a time for dialogue. The board offers public participation to members of the public in accordance with the procedures below. The board applies these procedures to all speakers and does not discriminate based on the identity of the speaker, content of the speech, or viewpoint of the speaker. And there's several rules listed below. So I will call on the first person, Diana Collins. Please come forward to the podium. And you do have 3 minutes, and I do time it, just to be fair.
I'm Diana Collins. I live in the county. I own a home in the city, so I am a part of your school community. I changed the narrative in the Marion Star from Mr. Mazzi. Good luck.
Thank you.
You have your hands full. You have some issues in your school that are not going well out in the community. If kids don't have discipline, they will not learn. I have 38 years of experience with that. Your young ladies, early in the school year, redecorated your bathroom over here with chocolate milk and jammed chocolate milk cartons into the toilets, trying to clog them. That's not a behavior I really expect out of high school students. You had a student walking the hall one day. You have a resource officer. You have administrators. Why is that happening? I understand that has happened over at Taft, and apparently it has moved over here. You're having soap dispensers torn off the walls in the bathrooms. That's my money you're tearing off the walls, as much as your own money. I wouldn't think that would be appropriate. And I'm hearing this stuff from someone that knows. It's not just some gossip on the street corner. I saw another gentleman, and he told me that the Pleasant football team in their school have to have six deputies come Friday night to keep order. Apparently, your football team, and this came from very reliable source also, your football team threatens people, kids, on Facebook and so forth, and your school expects to win because of the threats. Those are just 4 things that I picked up on. Your kids are not worried about their test scores because you're the lowest in the county. They're worried about acting up. I think this culture needs to change. Thank you.
Mark Butler.
Good evening. My name is Mark Butler. I'm from Delaware, Ohio, and I'm currently working. Well, I was present. Past tense. I was presently working as a substitute teacher for Marion City Schools, specifically at Marion Grant, and also want to give thanks to interim superintendent for that great phrase, changing the narrative. And I did ask you, could I use that without copyright infringement? Well, let me get to the praise. I want to thank, first of all, last year I met a young man by the name of Johnny Jackson, who's back there, at George Washington Elementary School. And we talked a little bit, and I told him a little bit about what I want to do, how I see my future in Marion City. And this year, I decided to focus on Grant Middle School because I truly believe that's my call, is with the young people of that age. I can work with K through pre-K, I've done all that, but I see the significance using my gifts is at the middle school. And you mentioned the performing arts. I have 30+ years of performing arts. But here's my story. On October 6th, I was assigned to Marion Grant Middle School in the afternoon. And I won't go into great detail. I just want to give you an overview. Had a young man in the classroom. I kept telling him to please sit down. I lost count of how many times that I told this young man to sit down. The young man started to erupt like a volcano. The young man proceeded to leave the room without a teacher's note or pass. And I heard later the young man started yelling in the hallways. Gotcha. And it's causing very disruption. So the young man came back to the classroom. I did not feel comfortable with, as far as my safety and the safety of the other young people to let that young man in. So I stood right there in the doorway until I could get some help. I had another teacher across the way call for assistance for the resource officer and for the dean of students. I don't know the details of what was been said, but I've been in touch, or trying to get in touch with the building principal. Finally, he's reaching out to me. But in the beginning, it seems like I had to reach out to him, Mr. Saban, in order to start the process of some type of reconciliation. To this time, as I speak right now, I'm uncomfortable of going back to Grant middle school unless I have a conversation about the process or the processes of how to feel safe as a substitute teacher and also have the ability to protect the other young people in the classroom. And also, if something happens to a staff member or substitute teacher, what's the response? I think there should be a quicker response. I think I wish I could have had a radio and I could have felt a lot safer, but I did what I could do at that time. So, and finally, I'm not here to protest. I'm here to give more praise because I support public education. I'm a graduate of public education, and I do what I can to support public education. I've been serving for a while, but my call, I believe, and I discussed it with Dr. Jackson is to lend my gifts to Marion Grant Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments. Now we go to item 7, agenda confirmation. Additions or deletions to the agenda. Do we have any? Okay.
Move approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. There being no additions or deletions, Veronica, please call the roll.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Ms. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Ms. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. We have no old business. We're going to go on to new business, line items, substitutes not holding a bachelor's degree. And there's a resolution there. I don't know that I need to read all of this, do I?
I can speak to
That
it a
would
little
be
bit.
great.
Sure. So just so the board and the community know, although you've been living it since COVID, how much we value our staff. I know the board values them. We certainly value them. We value what folks have to go through to obtain their teaching license, to get credentialed to teach in whatever discipline they choose. At the same time, we also know that getting subs just in general is difficult. Post-COVID has made it more difficult, just like probably anybody has seen in business. So when you look at this particular resolution, what you see is something that the state has allowed to put in place, and they've just asked districts to more formalize it. So if this was going on prior to this year, it started with the 21-22 school year. The state actually allows it to go through the 23-24 school year. Again, a fluid document. We're trying to leverage every resource that is available to us to get coverage in our classrooms. So this does and did and continues to allow us to bring folks in who might not necessarily have a bachelor's degree under certain circumstances. Obviously, they still have to have all the criminal background checks. The other thing we've done is we have an internal document that we use that we prefer the person to at least be 21 years of age. Even with a criminal background record, there are some things that are on there we can specifically look at. So we ask that there be no arrest record to possibly be enrolled in a post-secondary institution, maybe even be working or having obtained an associate's degree, possibly even maybe retired from the military, and so forth. So this is something that was done last year. We already have people this year. ODE has just asked districts to more formalize the process at a board meeting. So that's why you're
Do we
seeing this.
need board approval for this, or?
Yep, board action, that's
All
correct.
right, I didn't see it listed.
And before we move on to the vote, I guess, and Steve and I have been in email communication concerning this, realizing that obviously if the state Board of Education is doing this, is not simply a Marion City problem, it's not just a Marion County problem, it's statewide, if not nationwide. However, that does not alleviate our responsibility to try and solve it. that we are looking into this and to find out, in fact, why is there a shortage? Is there something we can do about it? Is there a reason if people are not wanting to sub in Marion? What are those reasons? What can we do? Mr. Butler, I thank you for speaking here tonight. And since it pertains specifically to this next agenda item, I think it's definitely important to know why, and as we've discussed, it's not always money. That's not always what it is, and the culture of the school and the safety that you feel coming to school. It's something that needs to be addressed. The conversations are being had, but we know as well as anybody, if it's just a conversation, nothing's getting done. So we need to follow up on that. And I want to take responsibility for that to make sure that we do find specific reasons as to why we have a shortage here in Marion, because that's the only one. We can't affect the state of Ohio shortage, but we can hopefully address the shortage in our community. So that's all I want to say.
Good point.
When you say 21, is that in one of these code sections, or is that us saying they have to be at least 21?
That's us. We are allowed to not only have this resolution, but also create our own internal document and guidelines, administrative guidelines, if you will, above and beyond this. So
Correct. What is the state minimum on age? Do you know, 18?
it could very well be someone who's 18 if they've graduated. That's correct. So we talked a lot internally about, what issues could come up with a recent grad, let's just say, from whatever district. So it does leave the door open sometimes for some things that maybe don't make sense. So that's why we want to look at each case individually when these come forward.
And then is this going to apply also to potentially, what we would classify as super subs, or no?
I think with our super subs, the intent is different there, that the person that the person actually have a degree and have a long-term sub license and is able to perform those things in the classroom that we need to do, that's reflective of a degree.
And could you get could one get a long-term sub license with just a high school diploma now, right?
Correct, and no. The answer is no to that. They could not get a long-term.
They could not get long-term.
Correct.
And when you say long-term, how long? I mean, is that a month?
They allow up to a year for a long-term sub license, and you have to renew it yearly.
Okay, so you can't get a long-term license with just a high school diploma?
Correct.
So this says, the language is also they have need to obtain a valid, non-renewable temporary substitute teaching license. Is that easy to get, or how long? I guess I should ask, how long does it take with ODE to get that?
Depending on the time of year. Is it easy to get? It's easy to get if everything is clear on your FBI, BCI background check, and you meet the qualifications and the timing of the year. It's harder to get, let's say, in the late summer, start of the year, because ODE usually is so backed up. Easier to get in between those times. So.
But it does have to go through ODE before we can start them as a sub.
Okay.
How can we get, again, information to the public that we need these positions filled? Are we going to have a link maybe somewhere? I mean, even if it's on this board meeting, a link to apply at wherever. I mean, it's my understanding we're running short. I mean, it's an endless cycle, obviously. Teachers, staff members, I mean, they're going to get sick. And then when you're short, then you're stretching thin, So, I mean, it's an endless cycle. Then more people get wore out or hurt or sick because you're so stretched thin. So, I mean, it's an endless cycle, and we obviously need as many as we can get at this point applying.
Correct. Yep.
So, I mean, obviously if anybody at home has a high school diploma and sitting around, I mean, we need their help, obviously. So where do they go? Are we going to have something on the site that we could, highlight, I guess, on the board side or somewhere?
No, we can absolutely do that.
Okay.
We talk a lot internally about messaging and advertising for different jobs, whether it's custodial, bus drivers, there's still, a shortage on that, and we can certainly do the same thing.
Yeah, because obviously if people are going to hear this and there's people out here, they're going to come up and ask us where to get, we see them in the public and they'll ask, hey, where do I apply? So we can just say.
And I think Matt did a lot of social media for, when we were looking for bus drivers last year. So I would see it on our social media posts too. So, Julie?
Yeah, there is a link on our current website for our hiring position. If you go to Work for Marion City Schools or www.marioncityschools.org, go to Work for Us.
Yeah, oh, sorry.
I was trying to avoid the microphone. If you go to www.marioncityschools.org, in the HR section, in Work for Marion City Schools, there's a website on the right-hand side of it under Rachel Wixie, and you click that and it will take you to the application, and we'll get all the information from you.
And I appreciate that, but I'm hoping that we can get it, up front and center, because this is obviously, as I think we've had discussions, we're real short sometimes.
Absolutely, and we've also talked about the beginning ideas of like a referral program and some other ideas that are kind of trying to think outside the box. So we will get that at the beginning of the website. I think that's a great idea.
And I think to Mr. Weibling, you're head of HR talking right now to us. As Mr. Weibling has pointed out, this is a everywhere problem right now in education. Okay.
It is. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you.
And it looks like too, on this agenda, we hired some super subs, correct? And
Yeah.
are they, and it looks like, the pay is pretty nice. So these people that we hired as super subs will have an assignment every day, or are they in the same building, or will they float, or?
Right, every day. It might not necessarily be the same building, but they are guaranteed work every day.
And it looks like these people have degrees.
Yes.
So there's a big difference, it's gonna be a big difference in pay for that 21-year-old that's subbing for us as opposed to these degreed individuals?
The super subs versus the day in and day out subs, that's correct.
And will we, because we've hired them, pay their benefits and those type things, will they be under our medical kind of plan and stuff?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
And
And do we have more, can we hire more super subs?
I don't know how many were approved in negotiations, 3?
Three.
Okay.
Three were approved. Okay.
and that's with the
MEA contract.
MEA contract. Is there any chance of sitting down with them and asking for more? Because we're short, obviously it goes to them about having bodies around, but I don't know that they are interested, but.
If discipline was better, you could get.
Excuse me. Please.
The contract does not limit the number.
Okay.
We were trying to strategically place them in the buildings that had the highest absence and need and inability to get subs.
Yeah.
It's kind of where we were at. So it's the first time we've done it, or tried it, so.
I'm just hoping,
Yeah.
because obviously we're going short a lot, okay? That we would have more than 3, maybe 10, 15, I don't know what that would be, up to whatever, that could be moved around at HR and building principal discretion or superintendent's discretion per day. So if you have everybody reporting to a building, but yet, you're not using one at Harrison and it needs to be at Harding, that we could then move that person based upon administrators talking every day. Because we need, there's, to me, when we go short, and I think everybody would agree, the kids are the ones missing out because, we're not having full staff coverage, or we're pulling aides to then cover, so then our needy kids are not getting the aid, and then the teacher is obviously sometimes becomes overwhelmed at that point. So I'm just hoping that we can maybe address with more super subs, knowing that we have X number coming in every day, for sure, that we can count on, because they're daily employees versus, hey, who's going to sign up this morning? Because it's my understanding they sign up on a per day basis. So tomorrow, it's not guaranteed that substitute X is going to sign up for a position for us. But if we had super subs, at least HR and these administrators would know how many for sure are supposed to be coming in, is all I'm asking for. I think we're just not, I think we're too big, too many buildings, and we have too many openings for just 3, I'm hoping.
So we're still looking the traditional route for subs, like who do we get our
Right.
subs from? So we're still doing that, and we're having super subs, and now the 21, this resolution and stuff, so it looks like we're trying to do several different things to.
But I'm saying we only have 3 super sub positions, so I'm trying to see if we can increase the number.
And that's a good idea, but I'm saying we're still going the traditional route to try to find substitutes through whatever agency we use to get subs, correct?
Sure.
And then we have these super subs that are guaranteed a position every single day. And now we're, tonight, on this particular resolution, we're trying to create another path to get more subs. So we are trying to address it, but we just gotta make sure, like you said, that we get the information out that.
Yeah, this could fix the problem. I'm just.
Things right now, 3 pathways
Yep.
right now for subs.
I think we can kind of meet in the middle a little bit here. Let's see how it goes for a couple months. And if we find that we do need more super subs, I think then a conversation with Julie and Steve and MEA would be the way to go, so we are not.
Well, we can get more super subs, right? How many more can we have?
I thought it was just 3.
The contract actually
No,
with
the contract
negotiation
Specifies 3.
allowed for
Contract
3.
does not limit us.
Oh, it doesn't?
Does not limit.
Oh,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
What we talked about internally.
Oh,
when we-
thank you.
When we discussed proposing that in negotiations.
Okay.
And again, as Mr. Weibling pointed out, and I can tell you, as you can imagine, I'm pretty well connected still south of here, around 270 and so forth. This is not, again, a Marion problem, contrary to what people might think. My counterparts in Upper Arlington and New Albany, the places that you might think would not have this issue, are having difficulty finding subs. Pre-COVID, most districts would staff with subs at 90 plus, maybe high 80s, but definitely 90 plus percent during any given day. Post-COVID, in some of the worst days, we were down to 40%, 45% coverage in a district and across buildings. And since then, some of the higher that I've seen only hit 70-something% coverage in districts. So there's a lot of reasons why it's not happening, but definitely as we've seen, COVID has hit all markets, whether it's schools or businesses.
And just so we're clear, the super subs allow them to get some sort of insurance coverage on top of just a regular sub pay.
Yes.
Right, but they would be reporting every day like a regular employee to whomever you guys have them report to. So it'd be safe to say if we bump to 10, we're still gonna have plenty of openings or whatever.
Yes.
I mean, throughout the district.
Yes.
Okay.
So, and there were occasions last year when we could not get subs, that buildings, we had to go to remote learning. Are we at that point?
No.
Okay.
Good. All right. So I do need a motion and on this.
Move to approve. Second.
All right. And we've had our discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. Motion carried. Item B, identification and service plan for gifted students. Superintendent recommends the approval of the identification and service plan for gifted students for the 22-23 school year. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion.
And this is the plan the assistant superintendent talks about, correct?
Yes.
All right. Yep.
Okay. Call the roll.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Ms. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. New business, item 10. REM Consulting. The superintendent recommends the approval of an agreement between REM Consulting and Marion City Schools for the evaluation of 3 grants, $9,000 each, of the 21st Century programs for the 22-23 school year. So the total amount is $27,000 and the budget source is 21st Century. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Dyer?
Yes.
Ms. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. Item letter B, BenQ boards. This is for $334,731.49, and this is through CARES Act, ARP, and ESSER. Superintendent recommends the board authorize an agreement with the Schoolhouse Electronics for the purchases of 73 BenQ 65-inch smart boards for the Grant Middle School and 31 BenQ 65-inch smart boards for George Washington Elementary with related technology. And there below, you can see the rationale. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Yeah, I just myself wanted to point this out too, that this is completing the project from late last school year, that there were a couple schools that had not received the boards as of yet. So again, Grant Middle School and George Washington will be getting theirs. It's the same company, it's the same product, and I just wanted to point that out for
Great.
the public.
Thank you.
We need to bring those in to a meeting one time.
They
so
are
the public
nice.
The public can see those. Those
Yeah.
are really some.
They're really nice.
Piece of technology.
Yeah. All right. Call the roll, please, Veronica.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Ms. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried.
And just on that, Superintendent, do you know when that will be done? When they start installation, or?
I told Tabitha we shouldn't need anything this evening, so that's a great question. And I do not know the answer to it.
They need to get the purchase order within the next 30 days to guarantee that pricing.
Yeah.
And then they would start, usually they do that work at night, so they're not disrupting.
I mean, is it gonna be like the
No.
beginning of the year? Or?
I would say, I think that their goal is to be done by January, but
Okay.
it's probably going to mostly depend on their ability to actually get them in.
Yeah.
But it should happen pretty quickly,
All
so
right.
they should
Yeah.
have.
Thank you. Item C, RFS Behavioral Health Superintendent recommends the approval of an agreement between Marion City Schools and RFS Behavioral Health to provide integrated mental and physical health services for children and families effective 1/1/23 through 6/1/24. This budget source is general fund monies. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. Item 11, do we need to go into executive session for the consent calendar discussions? Anybody need to do that? Give me a minute. If not, we'll go on to new business consent calendar. I need approval. Consent calendar approval. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of the board, staff, or the public request specific items to be discussed and removed from the consent agenda. The superintendent recommends approval of all consent agenda items. Employment is especially conditioned on and subject to successful background checks, receipt and final administrative review of all application records and receipt of all necessary documentation. And this is B for items B, certified hires, C, classified hires, D, resignations, E, retirements, F, teaching supplementals, G, non-teaching supplementals, H, substitute hires, I, volunteers, J, unpaid leaves, K, miscellaneous employment items. Do I have a motion?
So, Madam President.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is something that executive session for. But in the retirement, there's a retiring person, and I just wondered, how do we handle that? Do we need to go into executive session for that? Okay.
Nope.
So we have a person retiring in November, it looks like. So do we have a teacher in place for?
What we do is, obviously, we work with HR, and so we're coordinating with that building principal and HR to post that position, because there's certain contract language about what a vacancy is when it occurs, and the process you have to go through then to bring somebody on board. So yes, we will be going through a process to replace that teacher. Yep, no matter when it happens.
Long-term, or, because we're talking sub?
Depending on, the quality of the candidate and, what we think they can do for us, absolutely.
All right, I just wondered.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Ms. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. Item 3, board announcements. Future board meetings, November 21st, 6 p.m. here, and December 12th, Monday, that's also 6 p.m., also here. And those are our final 2 meetings for the year. We made it, almost. We're crawling there, we're crawling there. All right, we go to item 14, committee reports. Do I have anything from extracurricular? Okay. I do know the sound system got delivered for the cafetorium, and they're hoping to get that installed this week.
Yes.
Is that right? And there's a concert Thursday night, choir concert in the cafetorium,
I believe that's what you
7
said.
o'clock. So that might be the first test of the new sound system. So that would be exciting. We've worked on this, I think, over a year. It's been pretty incredible. Anything on buildings and grounds? Communications? Curriculum? Diversity and equity? Finance? Policy? We're going to have a bunch of those next meeting, the policy. And before I get to student achievement, I do want to just update the community quickly about our K-12 consulting group that's working with us to help us find our next superintendent. So on Thursday, they'll be holding their in-person focus groups, all the district buildings, I believe, and there's a community outreach as well. They also have sent out questionnaires to our staff, and they've received 75 email responses, and they're hoping to get another 25 or so. They plan on posting the position still on November 1st on the K-12 website, the Marion City Schools website, and BASA. And if you guys haven't done so, make sure you send the questionnaire from the board to Kathy or Deb. And the other update is that they've reached out to potential candidates. They've shared the brochure. The Marion brochure is available at the booth for the BASA Fall Conference. And so they're excited to get this process started as well. So that's just a quick update. All right. Ted, do you have anything legislative liaison-wise?
No, thank you.
And Tara?
Yes, I have something to share. First of all, our students are doing a phenomenal job. They are just amazing every single day. There's so many things that they're doing that I could spend the whole meeting just talking about them. But first of all, I'd like to commend the Logos Freedom writers who went to Atlanta for a week, and they represented not only Harding High School well, but they also represented Marion City Schools in a real decent manner. Josiah Akins, Destiny Brady, Jamarion Brown, Micah Floyd, Jalea Freeman, Josiah Gooding, Kaden Jones, Kaylin Mays, Tremel Reese, Kaden Smith, Liana Smith, Jamari Starks, Jemiah Wyndham, and Journey Wyndham. They did an awesome job. And for some kids, this is their first time flying. We had some really nice benefactors. Shout out to the Dennis and the Traxel Foundation. Thank you, Mr. Hall, for that information, and the Marion Community Foundation. No funds, no school funds were used on that. It was all raised through grants and the generous donations. So shout out to the Logos Freedom Riders. Also, man, that Taryn Simmers is having some type of year, isn't she? She was nominated as queen, and she's just tearing it up on the tennis court. She's just doing a phenomenal job representing Marion City Schools. And this year, we made history by having a homecoming king, Trinity Keith. So I'd like to commend those students. And Taryn, I think, is just, I don't know, I had emailed Mr. Pitts to see where she is as far as her tennis career is concerned. And in the future, we're going to recognize MOAC athletes as they're finishing up their season.
And she's from Hayes.
She went to Hayes.
Hayes.
Yes, she did. Shout out also to the McKinley Elementary musicians who are also having a benefit. They are directed by Mrs. Ann Schertzer, and they're going to be doing a benefit at the First Presbyterian Church, and Mrs. Schertzer does a good job of getting our kids out in the community. I love that community outreach. So there's a lot of things happening on Thursday. We'll have to just choose where we go.
Yes.
And last but not least, thank you, Mr. Mazzi, for reminding me about our outstanding band this morning. I've shouted them out so many times, but again, they did an outstanding job at the OMEA Springfield Band Showcase. First place, Class A, Best Overall Auxiliary Color Guard, Best Overall Visual, Best Overall Music, Best Overall General Effect, Straight Superior Ratings, and Overall Grand Champion. To cap it off, this is just the third time in the school history that the band has received straight superior ratings from every single judge. This has truly been a momentous season for our students, and they're looking forward to the finals week. And one of the things that if you go to their site, what they want to do is serve our kids marching tacos before they go to the contest this weekend in Miamisburg. So if you want that information to donate to our phenomenal band, see me after the meeting. So that just some really outstanding students in the Marion City Schools District.
And they'll
Thank
go
you
to,
for reminding me.
and they'll go to state competition in
and
Hilliard.
Florida.
And they're going to Florida, so yeah.
And shout out to Mr. Hartman and his staff.
Yes, they're amazing.
I guess before we close too, Tara, I love your idea about the BenQ boards. If we could, I'm sure there's a teacher and a group of students who would love to demonstrate. Anybody who hasn't seen those
BenQ board,
the-
they're really
the
nice.
boards in action, I think that's a great idea. So I don't know
See
how
what
we
we're
make that
spending our
happen,
money
but
on.
Right,
absolutely. Yeah, show the public, no doubt about it.
All right. I need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of number 1, appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official. So we need a motion.
I understood we also wanted to go in for number 6, is that right? Mr.
Number
Massey?
6.
For the
I
security
kind
of
of
the,
wrapped it all up into.
is that's
Yes.
what she put it on?
Yep.
You
Yes.
put it on our employment, okay.
Yep.
All right, do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second? To go into, okay. All right,
You take a vote.
pardon?
Take a vote.
Yes. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Ratliff?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. I don't know if there's going to be action. Steve, will there be action after that?
No.
And so we will now adjourn. It is
We're not adjourning.
7:10.
18 adjourned.
We're
I
not
have to
adjourning the
have a
meeting.
Oh, that's right, duh. By the end of the year, I should have
Got
this going. Golly. So we are going to adjourn. There's no action anticipated after we come back. I wish you all a wonderful evening. Stay safe and have a good evening. Thank you for coming.
Go Guardians.
Go Guardians, yeah. All right.